Hello. This is going to give you some little insight to the math ACT. So, what do we have? We have 60 questions in 60 minutes. And yes, you would think that's a minute per question. However, um, some of the questions at the beginning, as you see, it says questions go easier to harder. So, you don't want to have to spend as much time at the beginning so that you can leave yourself some more time for those harder questions at the end. You need to make sure that you answer all the questions. So maybe they say 5 minutes remaining and you have 10 questions left. That means you need to fill in a choice for each question. So fill in the bubbles. Now, my suggestion on filling in the bubbles, pick a letter and keep it. So if you pick B on every single one. What you'll notice though about the ACT, it may not be B, but maybe you're just selecting the second choice on every single one or the third choice. It just should not matter, as all the questions should be, or all the answers should be about the same all the way through. But you're more likely to get something right if you pick the same one than if you just kind of do a pattern. You may end up missing all of them. Okay. There is no penalty for guessing. So that's why I'm saying fill those letters in. See if you can get a couple questions just by doing that. So, what is tested on the Math ACT? So, this is kind of important. So, um, preparing for higher level math. This is 57 to 60% of the test. So, this correlates to about 34 to 36 of the questions. This is your more recent math. So, this is probably stuff that you've been learning while you're in high school. It could be expressions, it could be solving equations. Um, but these things are really divided into 5 different categories. So, the first one is numbers and quantities. This is about 4 to 6 of those questions, or 7 to 10% of them. So, what you have to do here, this could be order of operations, it could be fractions, decimals. It could deal with a little bit of vectors and matrices, but it's really very basic knowledge of those, not real elaborate stuff that you might get into in your upper level math classes. The algebra portion, notice that this is 12 to 15%, or 7 to 9 questions. This could be solving a question, graphing, X and Y intercepts. So it could be a lot of different things. The functions that it could be: linear, polynomial, it could be a radical or root, exponential, which we talked about in the last, and you talk about in Algebra 2. So you may have to find a solution to a system of equations. So it could be matrices or applications of any of these content areas. So the next section, again, about the same number of questions, is functions. It could be evaluating a function, could be function notation, a representation of it, or application. So again, we're still dealing with the linear radical. It could be piecewise. That may be something that you've not dealt with, polynomial or logarithmic. And again, if you haven't taken Algebra 2 or a college algebra class, you may not have seen some of these concepts before. Geometry, again, about the same number of questions. You need to know congruence, similarity, area, volume. Those are some big things with the geometry. Missing sides and triangles, how to evaluate things with circles and other figures. This includes a little bit of trigonometric ratios, which everybody freaks out when they see the word trig. But as far as the ACT goes, trig is very few questions. It may be 3 or 4 out of the total of 60 questions. So nothing to stress about. The last section that's showing on here is your statistics and probability. And this is 5 to 7 questions. So this could be mean, median, and mode. It could be standard deviation. It could be calculating probabilities and sample spaces. So those are the kind of things that you would look at for statistics and probability. And this is the area on the ACT that we're seeing more questions than we have in the past. Now, how is it tested? So about 40% or 24 to 26 of the questions are what we call integrating skills, which means it's going to require you to do multiple things. It's not just one thing. So notice this says these questions address concepts typically learned before 8th grade, such as rates and percentages. So this could be your pre-algebra stuff that we're talking about in the 2.02 lesson. Area, surface area, volume, average, and median, expressing numbers in different ways. Notice that these are more kind of our pre-algebra type skills. The next one is our modeling, and it's less than 15 of the questions. And this is you're evaluating, you're trying to figure out what's best, and you are modeling some kind of scenario. Maybe you're coming up with an equation to represent something. So that's another area that we look for. So some general strategies. Write all over your test, okay? Write on scratch paper. Then use your good technique on every question. You are taught how to do it correctly in math, use that. Don't skip steps. People skip steps and they make mistakes. Read slowly and in phrases. Make sure you know what they're asking for. So that might mean that you need to mark or underline or write on a graph. So make sure you understand the question before you start answering it. So a lot of times ACT will have something funny at the end. They'll ask you to solve for X, and then they'll ask, what is X times Y, or something like that. So be careful with that. And if you have time, check as you go. Make sure your answer makes sense. So hopefully this gives you a few strategies that you might want to start with as you are looking at the math portion of the ACT.